I parked the car in front of the bakery and ran inside. Today was my daughter's birthday. I promised I'd be home to celebrate. When I came back out, the car was gone. My spot was empty, just an oil stain on the concrete. I was holding the birthday cake for my daughter, Rosie. Condensation was seeping through the edge of the box. That spot was where my car should have been. I pulled out my phone. 5:40 p.m. Rosie's party started at 6. My throat was dry. I dialed the landline. Busy. I tried my wife's cell. Still busy. The owner of the convenience store next door poked his head out, pointing across the street. They towed it. Just a few minutes ago. I followed his finger. Across the street, a blue and white sign was nailed to a chain-link fence, a red X painted below the text. I hadn't even seen it when I parked. My mind had been full of Rosie, chattering about strawberry cake and the Princess Elsa doll I had for her. The doll was in my briefcase. I hailed a cab. The Northside Industrial Park. The driver grimaced. That's a long haul. You're looking at an hour. Easy. I stared out the window, my fingers digging into the edge of the cake box. Inside, the cake was collapsing, melting. The cloying smell of buttercream mixed with the stale smoke in the cab. The tow company was tucked away in a desolate corner of the industrial park. A few rows of dilapidated brick buildings surrounded a dusty, sprawling lot. The yard was crammed with cars. My sedan was shoved in a corner, covered in a thick layer of grime. A glaring yellow ticket stuck to the driver's side window. The office was thick with smoke. A man in greasy overalls had his feet propped up on a paint-chipped desk, scrolling through his phone with the volume blasting. I slapped the ticket down on the grimy desk protector. My car. Why was it towed? And a $2,000 fine. The man didn't look up. Illegal parking. See the sign? You blind. He snorted, glancing at me sideways. $2,000 for the fine, $500 for the tow, $200 a day for storage. Pay up, get your car. Those are the rules, got it. He went back to his phone. Don't pay. Leave it. Every day you leave it. It's another $200. My fists clenched at my sides. I never saw a sign when I parked. It's my daughter's birthday. The cake. I pointed to the shapeless puddle on the floor. It's ruined. The man waved his hand dismissively. Didn't see the sign? Your problem. Rules are rules. Your daughter's birthday? What the hell do I care? She's not my daughter. He blew a thick cloud of smoke in my face. Now pay up. No money? Doors to your left. Go cry somewhere else. You're interrupting my feed. I stood my ground, the acrid smoke catching in my throat. An image of Rosie's disappointed little face flashed in my mind. The $2,500 was money I'd saved by pulling all-nighters on a freelance project. It was for Rosie's art classes. I stared at the man's greasy, slicked-back hair, and the blood rushed to my head. I lunged forward, slamming my hand on the desk, so hard his phone almost flew off. Rules. My voice cracked, rising in pitch. Your rules are robbery. It's extortion. My chest heaved. Get your boss out here. I want to file a complaint. The man jumped, his phone clattering onto the desk. He kicked his chair back in a flash of rage and stood up a good half-foot taller than me. Complaint. Flecks of spit hit my face. Who the hell do you think you are? Huh? Get out. You keep this up, I swear to God I'll have you crawling out of here. His thick finger was nearly touching my nose. Hey, get your car. No money? Scram. His massive hand shoved my chest. I stumbled backward, caught off guard, my back slamming hard against the doorframe. A dull pain exploded through me. The ruined cake box at my feet was kicked over, its contents smearing across the floor. I leaned against the cold frame, gasping for air. My chest ached where he'd pushed me. The mess on the floor was a swirl of red and green, a grotesque mockery of a birthday cake. The image of Rosie laughing, clutching her new Elsa doll, shattered. I stared at the man's smug, contemptuous face as a cold, hopeless rage burned through me. I took one last look at the stain on the floor, then spun around, yanked the door open, and stormed out into the dust. The door slammed shut behind me. I didn't go home. I went to the DMV. The glass facade reflected a blinding white light. Inside, the air conditioning was frigid, the marble floors polished to a mirror shine. Clerks sat behind counters, their faces impassive. I squeezed my way to a window. A young woman with bright red lipstick was filing her nails, head down. I need to file a complaint. I slapped the crumpled ticket and receipt onto the marble countertop. That towing company in the north side, predatory towing, illegal practices, price gouging, and their employee assaulted me. The woman looked up, her false eyelashes like tiny fans. She glanced at the papers, then at me, her eyes filled with annoyance. Oh, a towing dispute. She picked up the papers with two long, manicured fingers and dropped them to the side. That's handled by the violations department. We just logged the initial report. She pushed a blank form toward me. Fill this out. I stared at the dense blocks of text. Fill this out? And then what? Give it back to me when you're done. The woman picked up her nail file. It'll be routed to the appropriate department. You'll get a response within 7 business days. 7 days? My voice shot up. My daughter's birthday will be long over in 7 days. They still have my car. They're charging me $200 a day for storage. That's extortion. The woman stopped filing and frowned. Sir, watch your tone. This is a public service center. There's no need to shout. Her voice was ice. The regulation is 7 business days. Fill out the form or don't. It's your choice. Next. She turned her attention away from me completely. The person behind me pushed me aside. I stood in the middle of the lobby, clutching the blank form. The hum of conversation, the clacking of keyboards, the automated voice calling numbers. It all blended into a cold, indifferent wall of noise. A deep chill started in the soles of my feet and crept up my spine. I crumpled the form into a tight ball. I looked up. A sign on the wall in gold letters read, "Serving the public with integrity and passion." It felt like a joke. I sank onto a plastic bench. It was cold. I pulled out my phone. A dozen missed calls, all from my wife. One text message. Ethan, Rosie has been crying for an hour. Where's the cake? Where are you? Do you even care about this family anymore? I closed my eyes, digging my fingers into my scalp. The pain couldn't suppress the fire churning in my gut. The flames licked at the edges of my sanity. My eyes snapped open, bloodshot, and fixed on a frosted glass door at the far end of the hall. Head of Violations Department. The door was closed. I shot to my feet. The crumpled paper ball hit the floor. I pushed through the crowd, my dress shoes echoing on the marble. Open up. I roared, pounding my fist on the frosted glass. The dull thuds vibrated through the door. Somebody in charge, get out here. Stop hiding like a coward. Get out here and explain this. The lobby fell silent. Every eye was on me, a mixture of shock and fear. 2 security guards rushed over, grabbing my arms. Hey, what are you doing? Stop it. Let go of me. I struggled, wrenching an arm free, sending one of the guards stumbling. In the struggle, my elbow swung out with uncontrolled force and slammed into the floor-to-ceiling window next to the door. Crash! The sound was explosive. The entire pane of glass shattered into a million falling crystals. A piercing alarm began to shriek. The lobby was dead silent. I stood panting in a sea of broken glass, a gash on my forearm already beating with blood, dripping onto the pristine floor. A camera flash went off. Someone was recording with their phone. More guards swarmed me, pinning me to the ground, my cheek pressed against the cold, hard floor. I turned my head. Outside, on a skyscraper across the street, an electronic news ticker flashed. I could see my own pathetic image, my shirt bloody, being held down amidst the wreckage. The headline, Rioter Trashes DMV. Public servants face violent challenge. The cold electronic light reflected in my hopeless eyes. The world turned red. The lights in the holding cell were a stark, sterile white. The iron door slammed shut. I sat on a hard cot, the handcuffs biting into my wrists. My arm was bandaged. I stared at a water stain on the wall, my mind a complete blank. Rosie's crying, my wife's desperate voice, my twisted face on the news screen, the sound of shattering glass. It all swirled together into a meaningless vortex. The small window on the cell door slid open. A cop's face appeared. Ethan Hayes, someone's here for you. Let's go do the paperwork. I looked up, dazed. I followed him like a robot. I signed a few papers. When I walked out the main doors, the harsh sunlight made me squint. The air tasted of freedom, but I was freezing. My wife, Megan, was standing a short distance away, her back to me. She turned around slowly. Her face was pale, her eyes sunken and dark, her lips colorless. She wasn't crying. Her gaze was just tired, empty. She was clutching a thick manila envelope. I walked toward her. Megan. My voice was a dry, raspy whisper. She didn't answer. She just shoved the envelope into my hands. I looked down. Termination of employment. The bold letters stung my eyes. I snapped my head up to look at her. HR sent it over. Megan said, her voice like ice. You're on the news. They said you're a liability to the company's image. Immediate dismissal. No severance. She paused, avoiding my shattered expression, and pulled a neatly folded paper from her purse. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it. At the top of the page, the words divorce agreement made my pupils constrict. Sign it, Ethan. Her voice was quiet but absolute. Rosie, I'm taking her to my mom's for a while. You should take care of yourself. She placed the papers and a pen on top of the envelope. The paper was cold. The pen was cold. Without another glance, she turned and walked away. The sharp, quick clicks of her heels echoed down the street and disappeared around the corner. I stood there, holding the cold envelope and the divorce papers. The sun was blinding, but I felt like I'd been plunged into an icy abyss. Fired. Divorced. Rosie was gone. My world had cracked open and swallowed me whole. I don't know how I got back to our apartment complex. The security guard gave me a complicated look. I didn't see him. I just floated past. I walked to my assigned parking spot in the garage. It was empty. The car was still at the tow yard, collecting dust and fees. I numbly tore my eyes away. On the concrete pillar next to the spot, a brand new yellow parking ticket was stuck to the surface. A ticket. Another ticket. I stared at the yellow paper. The black letters twisted into a jeering face. The tow yard thug's greasy, arrogant face. The DMV clerk's cold, indifferent face. The security guard aggressive face. Megan's empty face. My own crazed face on the news. All of them swirled together on that ticket, laughing at me. A metallic taste filled my throat. My vision went dark at the edges, my temples throbbed. The world dissolved into nothing but that piercing yellow. I lunged forward and slammed my fist into the cold concrete pillar. Arg! A raw scream tore from my throat. The skin over my knuckles split open, raw and bloody. A sharp, radiating pain shot through my entire body. But it was nothing compared to the hopeless fury in my heart. I slid down the pillar and collapsed onto the cold ground, burying my head in my knees, my shoulders shaking violently. Broken, strangled sobs escaped my throat. Tears mixed with blood, dripping into the dust. The sky turned dark. The motion-activated lights in the parking garage flickered off. A pale, weak light filtered in from the distant entrance. I was a shadow huddled against a pillar. The blood on my hand crusted over with dirt. I stayed like that for a long time. The sobbing stopped. The garage was dead silent, except for the heavy thud of my own heartbeat in my ears. I don't know how long I sat there. Then I moved, stiffly, slowly. I used the pillar to pull myself up. My legs were numb, pins and needles shooting through them. I staggered, but found my balance. I didn't look at the ticket. I didn't look at my mangled hand. I turned and shuffled toward a corner of the garage, to a storage spot where our old, beat-up van was parked. I pulled the door open. The smell of dust and motor oil hit me. I slid into the driver's seat. I didn't turn on the light. I fumbled in the darkness, reaching deep into the glove compartment until my fingers found a long object wrapped in thick canvas. The cloth was stained with oil. I unwrapped it layer by layer. Several tubular objects. A few rolls of electrical wire. A few small boxes with hazard symbols printed on them. A few electronic components. My fingers brushed over them. The feeling was familiar. My name is Ethan Hayes. I'm a demolitions engineer. I picked up a detonator. Its cool metal shell was heavy in my hand. The familiar sensation unlocked something that had been sealed away. The chaotic, burning heat in my mind was replaced by a cold, precise logic. What kind of charge is needed? The target is a vehicle. The fuel tank is the key. Gasoline vapor mixed with air. It would multiply the explosive force. The blast radius. I pushed away the thought of collateral damage. There was only the yard full of towed cars. A few repulsive faces. The sound of an alarm and shattering glass. I began to work. Calmly. Precisely. I pried off the dashboard panel, locating the vehicle's main wiring harness. Snip. I stripped the insulation. Found the power line to the ignition coil. I used a multimeter to check the voltage. Selected a relay. I fixed the detonator to the thinnest part of the fuel tank's outer shell. I connected the wires. Red to positive, black to negative. I wrapped it all tightly with electrical tape. Finally, I took out a small, square electronic timer. The screen was dark. I pressed a button, and a soft green backlight glowed. I stared at the blinking digits, my finger hovering over the set button. How long? Long enough to make sure the van gets towed. Long enough for it to be parked in the yard. On their turf. I paused for a second. An image of Rosie's crying face flashed in my mind. I pressed the set button firmly. The screen read 00:00. I entered the digits. 12. I pressed start. The green screen glowed. 12:00:00. The countdown had begun. The seconds ticked away silently. 59, 58, 57, like a death clock. I watched the numbers fall. My face was blank. No fear, no excitement, just a dead calm. I carefully tucked the timer deep into the wiring, securing it with tape. I replaced the dashboard panel. Everything looked normal. I pushed the door open and got out. I closed it behind me, locked it. The motion was fluid. I took one last look at the old van, a dim silhouette in the darkness. I turned and walked toward the exit, toward the light-polluted city night. I didn't look back. The next afternoon, the sun was bright. I drove the old van slowly, circling the perimeter of a busy downtown shopping district. Pop music crackled from the radio. My eyes scanned the sides of the streets, sharp and focused. There, a side street. A few cars were parked along the curb. A small blue and white no parking sign was posted on a utility pole. The sign was small and set back, and a delivery truck parked in front of it blocked half of it from view. Perfect. A cold smile touched my lips. I turned the wheel. The van slid into the spot, perfectly positioned behind the delivery truck, right next to the mostly obscured sign. I pulled a handbrake, killed the engine. The van was silent. Below the dashboard, in the shadows, the green glow of the timer screen blinked. 06:34:21. 06:34:20. 06:34:19. The coal numbers ticked toward their final destination. I leaned back against the seat and closed my eyes. The sun felt warm on my face. I waited, silently, like a hunter watching a trap. Time passed. The street was filled with the usual city noise. About 40 minutes later, the low, aggressive rumble of a heavy engine grew closer. A big black and yellow tow truck squeezed onto the side street, stopping just behind my van. I didn't open my eyes. The cold smile on my face deepened. The tow truck door opened and two men jumped out. One in greasy blue overalls, the other in a wrinkled gray uniform. Both had cigarettes dangling from their lips. The man in overalls banged on my window. "Hey, in the van. Move it. Now." His voice was rough and impatient. I slowly opened my eyes, looking through the glass at his unshaven, irritated face. I didn't move. The man banged on the glass again. "You deaf? You can't park here. Move it. Don't make us do it for you." The man in the gray uniform was already writing out a yellow ticket. I still didn't move. I shifted in my seat, getting more comfortable, my eyes calmly watching the two fuming men outside. Shit. The man in overalls finally lost it. He spat his cigarette onto the pavement and waved at his partner. "To hell with this guy. Let's hook him up." They worked quickly, shoving dollies under the van's front wheels. The tow arm lowered with a hydraulic hiss, a steel cable rattling as they wrapped it around the front axle. The cable went taut with a metallic groan. The van lurched. I sat inside, feeling the vibrations. I glanced in the rearview mirror. The front of the tow truck looked like a predatory beast. My face was a mask. The van's front wheels were lifted off the ground. It was dragged awkwardly away from the curb, the tires scraping against the asphalt with a piercing shriek. I sat in the tilted driver's seat, swaying with the bumps. I watched the street recede outside my window. The sun, the tall buildings, the pedestrians, the billboards. Everything was moving away. One last glance in the rearview mirror. The yellow ticket on the utility pole flashed for an instant, then was gone. The tow truck roared as it pulled me and my van into the main flow of traffic, heading for the Northside Industrial Park. I closed my eyes. The cold, strange smile was frozen on my face. Inside the van, the green numbers ticked on silently. 02:17:08. 02:17:07. 02:17:06. The Northside Industrial Park, a massive lot surrounded by a chain-link fence. Cars were crammed together, covered in dust. The air smelled of oil, dirt, and rust. My van was shoved roughly into a narrow space between a black sedan with a missing bumper and a scratched-up white SUV. A cloud of dust billowed up. The tow truck driver cursed as he unhooked the cables and removed the dollies. The van was dropped with a heavy, jarring thud. Without a second glance, the driver spat on the ground, climbed back into his truck, and drove off, leaving a cloud of black exhaust. The gate slammed shut, and the lot was silent. My van sat there, crooked and alone in a corner. Its front bumper was jammed against the sedan's trunk. Its rear was scraping the fence. The fuel tank was wedged between the black car's rear wheel and its chassis. Sunlight slanted through the dusty windows. From deep within the lot, a stray dog barked a few times. Time passed. The sun began to set. Through the office window, I could see the man in the greasy overalls, shouting into his phone while tearing into a piece of fried chicken. Outside the fence, a factory smokestack puffed white smoke into the hazy sky. The distant sound of traffic was a faint hum. Inside my van, beneath the dashboard, in a dark corner, the small green numbers continued their silent countdown. 00:00:03. 00:00:02. 00:00:01. 00:00:00. A faint electronic beep. Boom! A massive, brilliant orange fireball erupted from the van's fuel tank, expanding in an instant. The deafening roar tore the air apart. An invisible shockwave hammered everything in its path. The black sedan next to it was twisted into scrap, its windows vaporizing. The force of the blast lifted it and slammed it into the white SUV. The two vehicles crashed together in a shower of flying parts. Farther away, car doors buckled inward, alarms screaming. At the heart of the explosion, the van disintegrated, its flaming shrapnel rocketing in all directions. A wave of superheated air and thick smoke rolled outward, the smell of burning plastic and metal swallowing half the lot. The glass in the office window shattered. The man in overalls was thrown to the floor, his face a mask of terror. A monstrous column of black smoke billowed into the sky. The lot had become a hell of fire and twisted steel. I was standing on the side of the road, 100 yards from the main gate. I felt the ground shake as the sound of the explosion hit me, a physical blow. The hot wind, smelling of smoke and chemicals, whipped through my hair. I looked up. The sounds of sirens and shouting were distant and muffled. I just stood there, watching the inferno. My face was blank. No fear, no satisfaction, no remorse. Just a vast, empty calm. I took one last look at the pillar of fire and smoke. Then I turned around. I didn't run. I began walking back toward the city. My pace was steady, like any other man heading home after a day's work. Behind me, the sirens grew louder, converging on the hell I had created. The sirens screamed, their lights painting the burning wreckage in flashes of red and blue. Firefighters aimed massive hoses, sending white columns of water hissing into the glowing steel. Police officers were setting up a perimeter, holding back a growing crowd. I walked to a payphone 2 blocks from my apartment. I dropped a coin in the slot. My fingers dialed 9-1-1. 911, what's your emergency? Hello, I said, my voice even. The A1 priority towing lot, Northside Industrial Park. There was an explosion. I did it. There were a few seconds of silence on the other end, then a rush of frantic questions. What? Who is this? Repeat that. What is the location? Sir. Ethan Hayes, demolitions engineer, I said, my name and title stated with calm clarity. I'm at the pay phone at the second traffic light northwest of the explosion. I'll be waiting for you. I hung up the phone. It clicked softly into its cradle. I pushed the glass door open and stepped out. I walked to the curb and leaned against a lamppost, waiting quietly. My gaze was fixed on the far end of the street. I could have been anyone waiting for a bus. Several squad cars screeched to a halt beside me. Doors flew open and 7 or 8 heavily armed officers spilled out, their weapons aimed at the calm figure under the light. Don't move. Hands in the air. The shout cracked the air. I slowly turned my head to face the cold barrels of their guns, the tense, wary faces of the police. My own face was impassive. I slowly pulled my hand from my pockets and raised them to my shoulders, my palms empty. Several officers rushed me, slamming me brutally to the ground. The cold concrete scraped my cheek. A knee dug into the small of my back. Cold steel handcuffs clicked shut around my wrists. I was hauled to my feet and shoved into the back of a police car. The door slammed shut, sealing me off from the sun and the noise. The car sped away, joining the sea of flashing lights heading back toward the fire. Outside the police tape, countless cell phone cameras were pointed at me as I was escorted from the car. The flashes were blinding, the shutter clicks a constant roar. I kept my head down, walking between two officers toward the smoldering ruins. My face was like stone. That's him, the demolitions guy. My God, he really did it. He's insane. I heard they towed his car. Find him a fortune. He doesn't look crazy. The voices washed over me. I heard none of them. The light in the interrogation room was a harsh, clinical white. The walls were pale green. A table, a few chairs. The air smelled of disinfectant and old smoke. I sat in a hard wooden chair, my hands cuffed in front of me. Two detectives sat across from me. The older one had a square jaw and sharp eyes. The younger one was taking notes, his lips pressed into a thin line. Name? Ethan Hayes. Occupation? Formerly a demolitions engineer. I was just fired. Did you cause the explosion at the A1 priority towing lot? Yes. Why? Revenge. Be specific. I lifted my head, my eyes meeting the older detectives through the glare of the overhead light. My voice was level, clear, as if I were stating facts about someone else's life. They towed my car. Twice. The first time it was a $2,000 fine, $500 for the tow, $200 a day for storage. My daughter's birthday cake melted. I missed her party. I went to complain. They shoved me out. I went to the DMV. They told me to fill out a form and wait 7 days. I smashed a window, got arrested, and lost my job. I paused, as if recalling a distant memory. I got home, and there were divorce papers waiting for me. And in my parking spot, there was another new ticket. My tone was flat, like I was reading a technical manual. I rigged the fuel tank with a detonator and a timer. I parked it deliberately in a no-parking zone. I waited for them to tow it. I calculated the time. 12 hours. Plenty of time for them to get it back to their lot and park it. The older detective stared at me, his fingers tapping the table. And you knew the consequences? An explosion. There were other cars in that lot. What if someone had been hurt? My eyes fell to my cuffed hands. I was silent for a few seconds. I calculated the yield, I said, my voice low. The primary targets were my vehicle and the ones immediately adjacent. The blast radius. The distance was controlled. The gasoline vapor. It enhances the destructive force, but the core area. It shouldn't have reached anyone farther away. I was explaining technical parameters. The office was at a distance from the epicenter. Shouldn't have. Calculated. The younger detective looked up, his voice filled with incredulous anger. This is about human lives, not demolition parameters. What gave you the right? The older detective held up a hand, silencing him. He leaned forward, his gaze like a drill. Ethan, you're a professional. You, more than anyone, know how many variables there are in an explosion. Wind speed, temperature, the structural integrity of the other vehicles, the amount of fuel in their tanks. Any single deviation could have caused unforeseen casualties. You were gambling. You were gambling with other people's lives to satisfy your anger. My lips moved. I looked up, meeting his sharp gaze. Yes, I said. Just one word. An admission. There was nothing left to argue. The heavy iron door slammed shut behind me, the loud clang cutting off all light and sound. The holding cell was small and cold. The plaster on the walls was peeling, and the air smelled of mildew and bleach. A single low-wattage bulb overhead cast a weak, yellow glow. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor. The chill from the concrete seeped through my pants. The handcuffs were gone, but deep purple bruises circled my wrists. I hugged my knees and buried my head. Rosie's smile, Megan's empty eyes, the roar of the explosion, the pillar of fire. The images flashed and collided, then faded into a dead, silent darkness. I don't know how much time passed. I heard a commotion from the hallway outside the cell, the sound of shuffling feet and excited, hushed voices. That the guy in there? Yeah, the demolitions engineer, the one who blew up the tow yard. Did you see the video? It was insane. Serves them right. Someone needed to teach those tow companies a lesson. I heard they fined him thousands, right? Made him miss his kid's birthday? Damn, I'd have done it too. The voices were muffled and broken, filtering through the thick iron door. But they carried an unmistakable tone of excitement, of support. The head buried between my knees moved slightly. The noise outside grew louder. It sounded like a crowd was gathering. The voices became clearer. Check it out. He's trending #1 on Twitter. The demo dad blows up predatory towers. That's an epic hashtag. The comments are all on his side. Everyone's trashing the tow company and the DMV. Reporters are swarming the entrance, trying to get an interview. What about his wife and kid? Does anyone know? The demo dad, trending #1, support? The rusted gears in my mind began to turn, slowly and painfully. I lifted my head. My neck was stiff and sore. The cell door opened. A guard stood there, his expression a strange mix of professional severity and something else. Something different. Hey, get your things. You're being transferred to the county jail. He paused, then added orders from upstairs. You're to be held in solitary. Behave yourself. I silently got to my feet. My limbs were numb. I followed the guard out of the cell. The hallway was strangely quiet now, but the air still vibrated with the energy of the earlier crowd. As we passed the duty desk, I caught a glimpse of 2 young cops huddled around a computer monitor, their faces illuminated by the screen's glow. One was whispering excitedly to the other, who was nodding vigorously. I was put in the back of another police car. The windows were tinted. As the car pulled out of the Sally Port, camera flashes lit up the dark windows like a lightning storm. I could hear the muffled sound of shouting. Ethan, over here, demo dad. I leaned my head back against the seat and closed my eyes as the car drove away from the chaos. The solitary cell at the county jail was smaller and more oppressive than the holding cell. The door was a solid slab of steel with a small slot at the bottom for food trays. It was completely silent. I sat on the hardcot. The noise of the outside world was gone. I don't know how long I was in there. Then, the slot on the cell door clanged open. A guard's voice. Hayes, you have a visitor. Get ready. A visitor? My body went rigid. Who? A lawyer? A reporter? I slowly raised my head. I moved my numb legs and walked to the door. The guard opened the heavy door. The white light of the hallway flooded in, making me squint. This way, the guard said. I followed him down a cold hallway to the visitation room. It was divided by a thick pane of glass. On the other side, my feet stopped dead. Standing on the other side of the glass were 2 people. Megan, my wife. She was wearing a simple sweater, her hair pulled back. She looked exhausted, the dark circles under her eyes even more pronounced, but she was trying to force a calm expression. She was holding Rosie's small hand. Rosie was wearing a new pink jacket, her hair in pigtails tied with red ribbons. Her big eyes were wide, unblinking, fixed on me with a look of nervous hope. In her other hand, she clutched a small, square box wrapped in colorful paper. The room was silent. My eyes moved past them to a small table in the center of their side of the room. On it was a cake with candles stuck in the frosting. Someone had clumsily piped the words, "Happy birthday, Daddy." Megan gave Rosie a gentle nudge. Her voice was tight, trembling. Rosie, say hi to Daddy. Rosie took a tiny, brave step forward. She looked up at me, her voice clear and high. Daddy. She held up the small box, her voice squeaking with nerves. Daddy, I have a birthday cake for you, and a present. I picked it out. Daddy? Birthday? A present? I looked down. My shoulders began to shake uncontrollably. Megan choked back a sob and led Rosie to the table. Her fingers trembled as she struck a match. The flame flickered to life. She shakily lit the few colored candles on the cake. Her voice, soft and thick with emotion, came through the speaker. Ethan, the candles are lit. Her tone was almost a plea. Come on. Rosie is waiting to sing you the birthday song. The candles, they're going to go out. Birthday. My daughter was a few feet away, calling me Daddy, waiting to sing to me. Megan said, the candles are going to go out. I walked to the table. The warm glow of the candlelight enveloped me. I was close enough to see the fine, downy hair on Rosie's cheeks, her long eyelashes trembling with nervousness. She saw the tears streaming down my face. Daddy. Rosie's voice was soft, on the verge of tears itself. Don't cry. Blow out the candles. Make a wish. I raised a hand and wiped clumsily at my face. My vision was blurry, but the dancing flames were clear in my eyes. I looked down at the cake, at the lopsided red frosting. Happy birthday, Daddy. Megan forced a smile and began to sing the simple birthday song. Rosie looked up at me, then at her mother, her small hand still held tightly in mine. She bit her lip, and then in a clear, sweet, tear-thickened voice, she sang, word by word. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. End.